Hi everybody. So this is the second in a two-part set of videos showing the process of this painting, the still life of glass objects. And the truth is, I'm not entirely sure what to say about it. I think it's fair to say, as a generalization, as a stereotype, that artists tend to be more introverted than extroverted. I'm sure that there are extroverted artists, but I think I'd like to know, maybe I should try and find some studies or something, take a poll, how many artists are introverts versus extroverts. I definitely fall into the camp of introverts. In fact, when I'm narrating my videos, it's the time during the day when I am the most talkative, because most of the time, very quickly, I become known as the quiet guy in a group, which is not how I've always been. I used to be a big, loud spaz, and I still have a laugh like a donkey, and it's not that I'm shy, it's just that I find it frustrating when people talk a lot, too much around me. I've been watching a lot of videos lately about Brits, people from Britain, in particular England, and their impression of American culture, good and bad. They've been some pretty balanced and fair videos that I've seen. And one thing that Brits say is different about Americans is that we tend to be more open and more talkative and more loud, more friendly, more optimistic. And I can see why they would say all of that. But I'm only loud when I laugh, usually. So trying to narrate these videos is a challenge for me. One of my favorite quotes is, I think it's attributed to Walt Whitman, and it goes, "Never miss a good chance to shut up." I like the sentiment of that, and I also like how direct it is. It's funny. If you wanted a more philosophical sounding version of that same quote, I think it's either Buddhist or Taoist. Something like, "He who says much knows nothing, and he who knows much says nothing," something to that effect. I don't know whether I know a lot or not, but I can appreciate what I think that means. The truth is, I don't really understand the impulse to talk a lot, so I'd be happy to answer any questions people have, but at this point, I have 0 subscribers, so maybe I should reserve the question and answer session for if anybody actually watches the video and has a question in the first place. But carrying on from what I was saying in the first part of this two-part set, I've been just doing the black and white of this until I was ready to do the color as the final stage, and that's coming up here in just a second, I think. Okay, here we go with color. Now the thing with color in this painting is that even looking at the objects when I wasn't painting, I'd put down the stylus and I would just look at the objects. I could see the color in layers, or I could interpret the color in various ways depending on what I was focusing on. So I decided to approach it by leaving the brush at 100% opacity, so a solid block of color, and then turning the opacity of the layer way, way down so that I could control how much color the entire painting had, rather than trying to control the opacity of the brush strokes, because then you've got the opacity of the brush strokes interfering with what I did in black and white before. This right here, for example, most of the glass has this greenish kind of a very slight cast to it. So I'm just blocking all of that in solid and then turn the opacity way down, and then on a new layer I address a different aspect of color, like
around the highlights, there's just a slight yellowish orangish glow, and that's just from the light source. And also, that sort of thing you can kind of pump it up artificially to give more contrast, especially around the light bulbs, because purple and yellow are opposite each other on the color wheel, so it creates a really nice dynamic, even when it's used very subtly, like in a painting like this. I also noticed that, and I haven't gotten to that part yet, but there is, within the overall turquoise cast of the glass, there's a riot of color, like every color conceivable, like a bubblegum birthday cake or sprinkles or something, where every conceivable color is just smashing through all over the place. But it's so subtle that, again, I decided to paint it with an opaque paintbrush and then adjust the transparency of the layer way down so you can just barely get any sense that there's color there at all. But having it there gives it just a bit more life than it would have otherwise. And now we're starting to get far enough along that you can kind of see what the really simple color composition is. Like if you were going to make a diagram of what the color distribution looks like, what it would really show, the simplest version of that diagram is a yellow circle where that cork is, and then 2 purple circles where the light bulbs are. And I also noticed that the dark areas, the shadow areas of the glass has this sort of greenish color, and the light areas of the glass have sort of like a dusty yellowish ochre, kind of a tan looking color. And that's a completely separate, I guess, layer of visual information than the previous turquoise color that I put over the entire glass. It depends on how I'm choosing to examine the glass. It's hard to express. And it's especially true because I'm looking at it in life. There was no photographs involved in the creation of this painting. So your eyes, depending on where the light source is relative to your head, and how well your eyes are focused, and whether you were just looking at a dark spot or whether you were looking at if you were looking at a blue wall and then move your eyes into this white backdrop with the glass bottles, it's going to have a more orange cast in compensation of the blue that you were just looking at. Or if it was an orange wall that you were looking at, it would have more blue cast. That type of thing, it's the optical illusion, has a big effect on how you see the color. So looking at it in real life, there's a lot more variability there than if it was a photograph where everything is predetermined and set permanently in place. It gave me a lot of room to play around with different options, and I would do layers really subtly and then combine them and do another layer on top of that and then reduce the opacity of that one, and just played back and forth a lot. So thanks for watching. I'm going to make 2 versions of that painting available as a print on my website. So if you'd like to have a print of this painting, head over to blainesmithart.com. Otherwise, hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.